Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Lake Clark Shores workshop on November 10th, 2022. Can I have a roll call, please?
I assume I'm doing that. Mayor Paul Shalhoub,
Present.
Vice Mayor Robert Shalhoub.
Here.
President Pro Tem Gregory Freebold,
Here.
Councilmember Valentin Rodriguez, and Councilmember Robert Gonzalez.
Here.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, welcome everybody. So happy you all could make it. This is an opportunity for us to have really an open discussion outside of a formal meeting, although it's being conducted somewhat like that. It is not going to flow like a regular town council meeting would. So if you need any pen or paper, I guess let us know. We got some pencils up here and some sheets of paper to take notes. And we're going to be discussing the amendment or potential amendment to zoning, to chapter 125 zoning regarding trailers. So to start that off, Dan, can you give us everybody a brief history of how we got here today, and then we'll start entertaining audience comments?
Certainly, Mayor. That particular section of the code has some challenges with how it is enforced. There are some things that code requires that a code enforcement officer is not allowed to do. So for the most part, for the last 12 years that I've been here, we have not been enforcing that code. That was called into question by one of our residents, and we decided that if we were going to enforce the code, we should probably make some changes to it. And we asked for a moratorium to provide us some time to address those changes. And I believe some of the key issues that want to be discussed or should be discussed is screening. It's what trailers are allowed now versus what trailers we want to allow. Recreational vehicles, and also covered in that particular section of the code is commercial vehicles. So if I might recap, right now, trailers are required to be behind an opaque hedge or fence. Boat trailers are separated from other kinds of trailers. You're allowed more than one. You can have actually multiple trailers. The maximum length aggregate is 55 feet, and no single boat can be longer than 30 feet. Utility trailers or cargo trailers, it's allowed to have one with a max height of 10 feet and a max length of 20 feet. Our current code says recreational vehicles, you're allowed to have one, and that's a max length of 45 feet. So that's currently where we are. And I think the purpose of the workshop tonight, Mr. Mayor, is to hear what the public, what our residents would like, changes to any of that or no changes to any of that.
Thank you. So prior to today, there was a proposal for I should call it proposed revisions to the code put forth to the council by the town attorney. So the council never drafted any proposed revisions to the code, right? To this day, as far as I know, no councilman's put pen to paper and revised the code or proposed revisions to the code, right? So a couple meetings ago, that was discussed. I want to make it clear that the council at that meeting was the first time they had the opportunity to discuss it and have any input on what was there. And at the same time, the residents did as well. So here is kind of like a bullet point of what our current code is. On this side is where I'm going to be taking notes to see what everybody wants to do with the current code as it relates to these specific sections. So we got screening, you have boat or watercraft and trailer, more than one, which means multiple. Max length per each is 30 feet, aggregate can be 55 feet. So you could have two trailers, boat trailers, as it stands now, as long as they don't total more than 55 feet and not a single one is over 30 feet, right? And you also have a trailer, utility, and or cargo trailer. Current code allows for one of those, max height 10 feet, max length 20 feet. So the current code allows, and then recreational vehicle allows one, max length 45 feet. And then the commercial vehicle less than 1 ton, which I don't think we have any issues with more than a 1 ton commercial vehicle. But at any rate, does anybody want to start with some comments on keeping the code as is and why, or changing it? Keep this in mind. I don't know, 30 some years ago, this code was enacted and hasn't been really enforced. The town's changed a lot. So by way of example, if you have 2 cargo trailers, maybe they're 10 feet each, can't have them, right? That's in violation of the code. If you have, if you have any different combination of these, or if you don't have it properly screened, that's a violation. So if you go and you see a boat in someone's yard, right, and they're behind a fence, but that fence is see-through, it's just some wire bars, that would be in current violation of the code. Does that matter to you? Does it not matter to you? Do you want it just behind the face of the house or not? You're gonna have some homes here that are on a corner. So it's really odd. You're gonna go, well, where's the front of the house? What's where the front door is? So the front door might be over here. So the side of the house is over here. They got the boat over here, but it's in full view of anyone walking down the street, right? And it's not screened. So there's a bunch of things to consider here. And as a town council, we want to hear your thoughts on what you see around town based on what the current code says and what you'd like to see done with the revisions, if any. So please, anybody. That's why we're here. It's a workshop. You got to feel free to talk. This is relaxed. Come on. Yeah, come on up and talk.
I don't have the draft or anything because we ran out, but my question would be, as it stands now, is screening required for all trailers right now, as is?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, realize when we say screening is required, there's a limitation on the height of a fence. So if you have a boat on a trailer, the lower portion of the boat's going to be screened. The top portion is not, because you can't put a 10-foot or a 15-foot fence in front of the boat.
Correct. And then.
But it does require screening.
Yes. And then my other question is, with the changes that are proposed, does that make it basically, I guess what I'm getting at is the screening still required?
Yes.
So put it this way. Anything that was quote unquote proposed,
Yeah.
it's gone.
Okay.
This is what's proposed. See that? Nothing. That's why we're having this workshop, right? So again, no one's drafted any proposals. What was provided to us was the first time I had an opportunity to talk about it with the gentleman up here on the dais. And I think I got it a couple of days before, when it was in our packet. So again, there's nothing proposed. If you read the proposal, the initial proposal, and you like certain parts of it, or you didn't like certain parts of it, or you read the current code and you like certain parts of it and you don't like certain parts of it, let me know. But right now, there's nothing before the council has proposed. That has been wiped clean, and we're starting fresh. We're saying, like, let's figure out a way to make a code that fits the current needs of the community.
Okay. So from my perspective, in my opinion, April will be our 3rd year here in Lake Clark Shores, and one of the reasons that we purchased in here is because of the curb feel of the neighborhood. We came from another neighborhood that, there was trailers and other recreational equipment that was in yards and stuff, and we always get complimented. Anytime any of our friends have never been in this neighborhood come visit us and how nice it is. So my main concern would be to make sure that I'm not against people owning trailers or boats or anything like that, but that they are, far enough tucked away that they're not in, necessarily obstructive view of the street. And you get a nice view when you're walking your dog and everything else. So that's where my concern would be.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
What is
Yeah.
your name?
yeah, the gentleman, please, if you could step up to a little closer to the mic, tell us your name and your address.
My name is Luke Kalish and live at 7652 Palm Road.
Thank you.
Who's next? And you might notice there is no clock, right? We're just having an open discussion here.
I think I'll be next. I'm Morty Milt, 7700 Pine Tree Lane. Some of you guys know me as the house with the big flag. Sometimes I have a boat trailer in my yard or on the side yard, whatever the case may be. But I can tell you right now, we live in a boating community and boating is a way of life. Some of us are blue collar people, some of us are not. But I can tell you right now, like utility trailers, if they're there for a month unmoved, I see a problem there. But I see if a trailer is there for, goes in and out every day, I don't see a problem with that personally. I agree with you as far as curb appeal. I keep my yard very clean. The people, I'm not gonna mention who they are, but there's certain people in this community that do not take care of their house. I had to put a hedge so I don't have to look at people, certain people. They have cars that have moved for months. They have covered cars. That's more of my concern, where things are just kind of sitting idle. And I think that's where the beautification really needs to be focused. Not on boat trailers that go in and out of the water or in and out of the lake, or utility trailers that move every day to go to work. I think that we're focused on more of a, beautification where, you know what, yeah, you want to walk down the road and see, people's beautiful gardens and whatever they do, whatever it is, they keep their houses together. But, having a car lot across the street from my house really isn't my Lake Clark Shores. But as far as that goes, I think that there's some inconsistencies with some of these numbers that you have here from the previous code. You have here max length of a boat was 30 feet, aggregate length is 55 feet. I don't know what trailers you're measuring, but this is incorrect. I think if, like, I personally have 40-foot boats on trailers, and they do not measure 50 feet, 55 feet. They measure 45 feet at max with the gooseneck. Me personally, I have a boat at my house, maybe 1 or 2 days, and that's it. As far as having trailers at people's houses for a lengthy period of time, I think there's a problem. I think that if you're going to be keeping your boat in the water behind your house on Pine Tree or Lake Clark or Lake Drive or any of those other canals, maybe find a place to store the trailer rather than keep it in your driveway. That's going to be a problem for your neighbor. I'm just one person. This is a community. I think that, we all want the community to look great, and we all want to be proud when we walk down the street and invite our friends to the community and whatnot. So with that said, I think that have your neighbor in mind. We're all neighbors. We want to be, friendly to each other. I don't think this is a bashing contest per se, but I think that the common goal is to keep this community beautiful and be proud to what we have to offer our guests. So I like that we have this openness and workshop and whatnot, but I think there are some things that we can change here, and I'm not speaking for the guys that have utility trailers. I think they can come up and speak for themselves. I don't have a utility trailer. I may have one, but I can conceal it. I have a camper I can conceal, so it's not really anything that appeals to me here. But I do know when it comes to boats and boat trailers, I can tell you right now that these, I would give a maximum of 1 boat trailer personally. I don't think there's reason to have 2 permanently on a property, but me being in the boat business, I do have 2 from time to time, but they're not there for more than 2 days. So with that, I really appreciate everybody's time.
Well, wait, don't go. I
If
want to
I
make
could-
sure.
If I could just give an explanation to one thing he said. The reason it allows multiple boat or watercraft trailers is some people have a boat on a trailer, and they may also have ski-doos on a trailer,
Understood.
or a canoe or a kayak on a trailer.
Valid point. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So what I want to know is, you said don't keep a trailer in the driveway. Do you see any issues with people having a boat trailer in their backyard?
No, as long as it's not affecting anyone's
Okay.
side or
When you say backyard, is it behind the front line of the house? Is that okay?
behind something that conceals it. It doesn't have to be the front yard, backyard, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, I have a big hedge in front of my house. I can stick a boat trailer in front of my house, right in front of my front door, and nobody will notice it. So it really just comes down to, like I said, your neighbors. I think that some people could be a little bit more understanding, some not, but I can tell you that, you know, if it's concealed and you're doing, you know, you're attempting to conceal it, I think it should be allowed.
The boat trailers.
Trailers.
Got it. Boat trailers in general.
Trailers in general. I mean, like I said, we live in a blue collar community, and I understand that a lot of people in this community rely on their trailers to work. Let's not lose sight of the blue collar factor that there is. I know a lot of people have equity in their houses right now. You know, we'll have some new people coming in. Maybe they don't like it, maybe they don't, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but you know, let's not forget where we came from.
I appreciate that. And when it comes to the concealing, what are your thoughts on, so the code, our code uses the word opaque, which means you cannot see through it.
Mhm.
And then you have the fences that are, you know, like an iron fence or an aluminum fence that has the slats and you can see through it, but that's, you know, still quote unquote screened, but it's not opaque.
Personally, I'm a person of privacy. I like to have privacy. Like, I don't need everybody knowing what I'm doing behind in my fence, in my garden, my backyard. I think that it should be, if you don't want to do a metal fence or whatever it is, do a hedge. It looks beautiful. It's a
You have
win-win
a
for everyone.
PVC? You have partially
PVC is fine.
PVC?
I don't mind that. I did both personally in my house.
Yeah, I know who you are. I know where you live. We've been riding around.
Before you,
Come up here, sir.
before you go,
40-foot boat behind your hedge too.
I got
I like them.
On the hard-
pencils and paper up here,
But they're
sir.
never that.
I know, I like them.
so I wanted to clarify something, and it's just a question because we spent a little bit of time about 45 feet of maximum overall length, but that's for a recreational vehicle and it does not talk about a boat or watercraft at all. So the way that I'm reading the previous, remember, Mayor Shahoob said, tabla rasa, clean slate. We're just kind of going back to the drawing board here, but as it was proposed back, the first iteration, there is no size limitation as to the boat or watercraft, just so long, the way that I'm reading it, as it's behind your property or building line.
Mhm.
Personally, I don't think it's a length issue as much as it is a concealment issue. Obviously, boats are tall and long. If it fits behind your property, I don't care.
If it fits, it ships.
If it fits, it chips. You know what I mean? But like I'm fortunate enough to live in a corner, so I can take advantage of, you know, the ability to have a trailer outside of my house for one night and then it leaves the next morning, whatever the case may be. And some people don't have that opportunity. So I understand that, but you know, if it's there for like 15 days, I think that's where, you know, it might become an issue. Where
On the side of the house screen, or you're talking like in the front of your house?
No, in the front, like, you know, or you can say a week or some sort of grace period where, you know what, it gives them, you know, if they're moving the boat to another marina or they're transporting the boat, or there's certain situations or circumstances where they have to bring the boat home, you know, at least give them the ability to do so. I'm not,
I think that's already allowed, isn't it, for like maintenance or something along those lines?
there is
Charlie?
not, I've been.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Sure about
Yes,
that.
because
Well-
I store my boats off property
I've been
and I bring
called
my home
numerous
boat 3 times a year to prepare it. And I tell my neighbors, I'm bringing the boat
Well,
home.
we got our
It'll
attorney
be
here.
there.
Let's see what he says.
It's just like 36.
All I know is that I get a message from Dana. Love her. Great. But
Is it when it's in the front of your house or is it behind the fence?
Or either way. I mean, either on the front and the side. But
Okay.
I just tell her like, it's gonna only be there for a couple days or whatever it is, you know, max couple days. I mean, Bobby knows, I mean,
So you'd like to see a week or more that you'd be allowed to keep?
no, less.
Less.
So what are you,
36 hours, 72
What-
I would
hours.
say maximum week.
What's the current, Charlie?
I'd
Is
have,
is it part of the same code?
yes, it is.
Okay.
I'll find that answer.
it's 36 hours,
Uh,
All right, that's what I
36
thought.
hours.
But I do want to clarify the current code as it is codified in the town's ordinances says, however, in no event shall such waterborne vessel exceed an overall length of 30 feet, whether or not it is placed on a trailer. The aggregate length of the boat, vessel, and watercraft and trailer, so if you have multiple, shall not exceed 55 feet.
That's the current code.
That's the current.
And that's with multiple vessels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think that this is incorrect and we should probably take a look at that as far as, the aggregate length. I mean, say you have a jet ski, it's
Well,
not
the current one doesn't have any size limitation as to the
this,
watercraft or boat. The current one does.
the current one does.
Current
That's
one
what I'm
does,
saying.
correct.
I mean, 55 feet is a lot of feet when it comes to a boat and trailer, especially if you're going to be using the lake. A jet ski trailer at max is 15 feet, and the maximum boat you can put in the lake is, I don't know, you probably know better than me, but probably
22.
25 feet, 26 feet. I'm not talking about, a 24-hour, 36-hour period. I'm talking about, lengthier than that. This should apply to something that's going to be lengthier than that. It's not, more of a permanent thing rather than, a day here, a day there, whatever the case may be. Service, I can understand. We can all understand that we're, like I said, a boating community. Another issue is, I mentioned it earlier, is, cars on property that do not move. That is a problem. We have garages. Everyone in this community, most of us have garages. If you don't have if you have too much crap in your garage and your cars are sitting on your lawn, it's not very curb appealing to our community. And I think we should be focusing on that a lot more than, per se a trailer that's there for 3 days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miltz.
Yes. Good evening, Tim.
Tim Daughtry, 1410 Keller Road. So I didn't expect the commercial vehicle thing to be part of this ordinance, but I noticed it this today. I know your house and the size of your boat, it doesn't comply, and I don't think that's right, because this is a boating community. It's a boating community, okay? And that's what this is, Lake Clark Shores, it's a boating community. And there's there actually is a couple issues. Number one is notice, okay? And that's one thing that has come up time and time and time again from the time I even drove through this community before I even moved here. Because I saw commercial vehicles everywhere. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no. And then, of course, you all haven't been enforcing that and everything else. And it's a concern to me because there's people buying and moving in here thinking, I can put a commercial vehicle on the property or multiple commercial vehicles on the property. I can put multiple trailers because we haven't been enforcing this code for a very, very, very long time. And it gets to be problematic, especially for my newest neighbor, who has put 2 pads in at his house for an RV fifth wheel trailer and for a boat, one on one side and one on the other side. And I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. And we've been talking about, and his screening, he's moving the fence and everything else. But when it comes to dealing with this issue of either utility trailers or boat trailers or commercial vehicles, we need to be respectful of each other. Okay. I know Greg brings a commercial vehicle home every night too. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, and I've said this time and time again, we do have a lot of blue collar people in this community that need their vehicles to make a living. Okay. And requiring them to park their vehicles off-site becomes problematic from a dollar standpoint. And what I think we need to be is respectful of our neighbors. And I think screening is a really good way for us to be respectful of our neighbors and respectful of our community. I think we need to put a lot of emphasis on screening, 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 to the side of the house behind a fence. Limiting fences to 6 foot in height, I think, is not good enough because some of these boats do get up quite high. And we're talking about allowing a 10 foot by 20 foot utility trailer. Okay, so obviously the utility trailer is going to be quite a bit footage above the fence line. Okay, and we need to be able to allow fences a little bit higher in height, give a little bit more screening. That's what I'm looking for. And especially for a bigger boat to give a little bit more screening. I think we really need to be able to give people the opportunity to screen them properly the best way we can. And I also think we should be looking at people who are running businesses out of their house, which I am, okay? And we need to be careful about the inflow of material and the inflow of employees into the houses, okay? Because we don't want a never-ending stream of materials of a significant portion in size be coming into everybody's house. I mean, commercial deliveries of goods can be a really big issue, and I'm very respectful of that. I specifically have not put signage on my vehicles because I'm trying to be respectful of my neighbors and my community, even though I'm required by the state to have a certain amount of signage on my vehicle. And I run my business without that signage on just to try and be respectful of my neighbors. And like I said, we're putting more rules in and more rules and more rules in, but people are not being noticed moving into this community that these rules are going to be in place or in place and not enforced. And what are we going to do? People who have violated these codes for many, many, many years and have been here 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And now all of a sudden, oh no, you can't do that anymore. I don't think that's appropriate. I really don't. I really don't think that's appropriate at all. Like I said, when I came here, before I even bought in here, I drove the community to see how many commercial vehicles were parked throughout the community, and there was quite a few, okay? And now you're telling them, oh, no, you can't do this, or no, you can't do this, but you're telling them that's after the fact.
Are you suggesting that if there's a code revision that all the current residents be grandfathered in? Is that what you're
Well,
suggesting?
Yes, it is because of certain rules. I mean, honestly, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Now all of a sudden you can't do this. You're telling someone they can't continue to have their livelihood that has been going on for a very, very, very long time. Is it appropriate? Is it legal? That's a whole nother issue entirely, because we haven't chose to enforce the codes for a very, very, very long time. Is it enforceable? Okay. Now, running a business out of a household, obviously an issue, and it has a ability to be a nuisance. Okay, and we need to look at what it takes to be a good neighbor and not a nuisance. That's what, like I said, we should be focused on screening, and we should be enforced on somebody running a business that doesn't become a nuisance to the next door neighbor or the neighbors on the block. And that's what I think we should do. And like I said, going back to the size of the boat, okay? It's a boating community. I think we should be very accommodating as to length of boats. Okay, now you're telling somebody who's got a over, what was it, 30 foot you were talking about, or 35 foot boat? Is that what it was?
I'm sorry, say it again. I was taking.
What size boat was it we were talking about?
30 foot, 55 foot.
Okay. There's boats, and I know you have a boat that's over 30 feet.
Only there for dairy.
Yeah, so, yeah.
We're talking about lengthy, a lengthy, over the course of time that stays there.
Charlie, as the code is now, that aggregate 55, is that tying in the boat and the trailer and adding them up, or is that the aggregate feet of multiple trailers?
It is not adding the trailer and boat together if the boat is on the trailer. If the boat is off the trailer, then yes, it does add the two up.
If the boat's in the water, it's not adding it up, is it?
No. If
Okay.
it's-
No,
but
like
if
if you
you
take-
have a boat that is not on a trailer and you have a
Sitting on
trailer
stilts.
behind the boat, the two cannot exceed 55 feet.
I understand.
Is it on a trailer, is it exempt from this code?
No, if you have a boat on a trailer, the length of the boat cannot exceed 30 feet. If you have any other watercraft trailers, you add those to the length of the boat and boat trailer, and it cannot exceed 55 feet under the current code.
That's a problem. I
Ki-
think that should be changed to just a maximum feet of 55.
So Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Per trailer?
Overall, 55 feet, one boat, trailer. Having multiple units is another story. I'm saying, nobody that has a 30-foot boat should have a 55-foot trailer.
No, what they're saying is you could have a 30-foot boat, maybe that's a 35-foot trailer, and then you could have a 10-foot trailer for your jet skis, and that's 45 feet, you'd be in compliance. I think that's,
Yes.
okay.
What if you throw a couple kayaks in the backyard?
I don't know if kayaks, would kayaks count as feet towards this thing? Or no?
The code uses the term watercraft, and a kayak and a canoe is a watercraft. We've never had an issue that since I've been representing the town with kayaks or canoes or john boats.
that would put in like a stand-up paddleboard and so many other things. And I see, the ordinance has issues because if you now put in the word vessel by statute or by the Supreme Court, it needs to be capable of self-propulsion, right? Or is it just a floating structure? And that's a whole nother thing.
It does not have to be capable of self-propulsion, propulsion.
So the current code, if you have a 31 Jupiter, 31 feet, on the title, it reads as 31 feet, you're in violation of the current code, which, this is a 30-year-old ordinance, which I think, and I mean, Mr. Milts can tell you, he's in the boat business, but I think the average vessel that somebody would go offshore fishing is about 31 feet, if not more. So it's a problem.
Why not change the code to have an allowance for X amount of days? I know it's 36 hours.
Mr.
The enforcement was a little different for me because I got text noting the day of putting it there. So, I mean.
Mr. Mayor,
As long as it's not a nuisance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
we really can't have this kind of dialogue because
No.
nobody that's not in the not in the building can hear what's going on.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So we need to focus on speaking into the mic. Tim, I have some complaints about when you turn around and look this way, they can't hear you in the mic.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So please, anybody that's speaking needs to be at the mic and speaking into the mic.
And then one other thing I noticed on the code too was not being able to work or overhaul equipment at your house too. And again, screening. I think screening should be the focus of this ordinance. And then I think we need to be looking at screening, and we need to be looking at being respectful for running a business out of a household that doesn't become a nuisance to the neighbors and or the community. That's the two things I want to reiterate, okay? And that's really what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Okay.
What are your thoughts on that specifically?
Well, limiting how many employees can come in and, come into your house to meet you there for your business, okay? And I came from a very, very, very developed county in Northern Virginia. And when you opened your business, okay, and you had your business at your household, you had to sign a zoning form, okay? It says no more than 2 commercial vehicles. No more than X number of employees able to meet you at your house. It went into deliveries of materials at your house. Now that's become a huge issue now because of Amazon. Okay, I don't know what else to say, but Amazon's kind of blowing that part of it up. But for me, it's a zoning issue, not a
You want
code
that?
issue.
Okay, so you don't want that addressed in this code?
I think it should be addressed when somebody opens a business in this community and has a business license where they're running a business out of a house. I believe that's a zoning issue and not a code issue. I think they're 2 separate things.
Okay.
Okay. And then screening. I think if you could screen it and put it behind a fence of a certain height, I think that goes a long ways to making all these issues go away. That's what I'm saying. Okay.
So you don't have an issue with the length of a trailer or the height of the trailer as long as it's properly screened?
Well, your proposal is a 10 foot by 20 foot utility trailer. I think that's pretty large.
That's already currently allowed.
Yeah, see, and that's pretty large. Okay.
So you want to see a smaller trailer?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. Okay. I'm saying we need to be focused on people running businesses out of their houses. Okay, that's what I think we should do. Okay. And we should be allowing business owners to be able to run a business. Okay. But we need to limit the nuisance that might be created in the neighborhood and to the people next door. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And I think that's a zoning issue and not a code issue.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
to clarify, Mr. Daughtry brought up a point about commercial vehicles. And I don't think anybody on the dais today or any time beforehand has ever brought up limiting driving home a commercial vehicle. And, to Mr. Daughtry's point, Mr. Freebold brings home a vehicle as well. So I just want to make that clear that I don't think anybody has proposed significantly limiting, your ability to drive your work vehicle home to be able to get to and from. I think the spirit of what we're trying to curb or cap is this massive industrialized thing where we're now having 2 and 3 and 4 different commercialized vehicles on a residential property.
All right. I agree. I didn't see that as a factor. Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Y'all can feel free to just come on up and talk. I mean, you don't need to be called upon. Y'all can just come on up.
I'm Louise Brandenburg, 1890 Carissa Road. Mr. Clark, am I the resident you're referring to that brought up the trailer issue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I did not bring up a trailer issue. I brought up the home-based business law. It's Florida Statute 559.955. I know it by heart. I came into Mr. Clark's office or called him back in February about 3 commercial trailers that were being operated next to my house that I thought it was a safety issue. These trailers are coming and going, backing up, parking on my street, loading and unloading. I have an elderly man around the corner in an electric wheelchair. We have a quadriplegic in a wheelchair that's pushed by a caregiver. There are children on the street. We have kids walking to Forest Hill High School. I came because 3 commercial trailers being operated were a safety issue. I asked you to enforce the Florida law for home-based businesses. You told me that you went to this whatever it is, League of Cities, and this was discussed and how you lobbied, and yet you didn't know the law. You didn't prepare the code for the law. The home-based business or the business code that's in our codes presently is not updated to reflect the Florida law. The affidavit that a business owner signs is not up to date. I'm nervous because I have a lot on the line here. Okay. I live with a commercial business next to my house. There are 50 bounce houses in the backyard, hundreds of tables and chairs. Okay, 3 commercial trailers being loaded by employees. Mr. Freebold questioned one of the owners. He admitted he had 6 employees. State law allows you 2 in addition to those that live in the house. Okay, parking cannot be generated more than in a residence. Come by my street on a Saturday and Sunday and you will see 9 cars on a front lawn. This is depreciating my value of my home. I wake up at 6 o'clock on the weekends. Ms. Menendez is commenting back there. She said openly that she, do not excuse me or do not interrupt me. She said openly that she starts business at 6 a.m. in the morning. I've sent multiple emails to this council telling them I am awakened at 6:30 on holidays and weekends. The trailer code became an issue because I was handed a letter written by our town attorney that the mayor had me stay after a meeting to get. The town council, Mr. Clark handed me this. This was dated April 28th. Says, based on the review of the stated documents and the law, he is of the opinion that they cannot have more than 1 trailer on a property, which is the code, okay? They cannot store the business equipment out in the open. The business equipment has been out in the open since January 17th. I have rats coming into my yard. Okay, this is not a trailer issue. This is code enforcement issue. This is the Lake Clark Police not enforcing the Florida statute. This is the code enforcement officer telling me she doesn't know how to enforce a Florida statute. This is the code enforcement playing a nasty little game against the Brandenburgs for something the Lake Clark Shores Police did in 2015 to my mother-in-law. Do you remember that? Do you remember what you did?
Ma'am, would you be so kind as to just be polite during the meeting?
Well, you know what? I'm tired of being called a racist by Dana.
Ma'am,
She did it in front of you and you did nothing.
Ma'am. This is,
Enforce the law.
so this is a forum to workshop and be friendly, right? Communicate and feel free to share ideas and what you would like to see changed. Not a pulpit to yell at people and, scream obscenities or whatever you want to say. That's just not the purpose of today's meeting, right? As long as I'm running a meeting, that's never going to be the purpose of any meeting I'm going to run, right? So
You called a liar multiple times.
The issue is the trailer.
I was called a liar.
ma'am, I don't have any control over what people call you or don't call you. I let you speak, right? But please understand, let's be respectful of each other and why we're here, okay? If you have an issue, I get it, right? But there's a nice way to go about saying it. And, we're all up here, everybody here today wants to know, hey, how can we make the code better to fit the community's needs now? That's why we're here, right? So, yes, ma'am. Sure. Wait, hold on. Ms. Mendez, did you want to come up and talk? Okay.
First of all, I think it's indeed not very nice to explode like that. I do understand. I signed a petition. I understand the point of view, but the day of today, everybody's angry, mad. Nobody looks after each other anymore. People don't care about each other anymore. They don't care about the neighbors. They don't care about nothing. And as a matter of fact, all that thing hangs together. If you care about your neighbor and you maintain your home and you are respectful for your neighborhood, we would not be sitting here. I think if you have a big loan and that loan allows you to put 10 boats, 10 water vessels, like you say, I would not care as long that I don't have to see them. Now, putting a fence, I still will see them. putting a fence with what you call
Screening?
a screening, I don't think that's very appealing because I can imagine already how that's going to work. The first wind, they're going to have half and half. They're going to start. It should be gates.
So basically you're okay with the idea of
That they have-
screening with that you can see through.
That you cannot
wind-
see through.
You want it to be opaque. You want it to be, you can't see through it.
Yes.
Understood.
And that people have behind whatever they want. If you live on a corner, everything has pro and contrast. If you live on a corner, well, it's nice. You only have maximum 2 neighbors. But if you live on a corner, well, you have your corner is like your front door. It's on the street, so it's part of your entrance of what you exhibit outdoor, what people walking with their dogs and everything see. So I don't know why we make such a aggressive approach here. And I do understand the lady. I would not like that either. Honestly, I would not like that. So I think something should be done. Now she talks about tables and chairs and whatever. Well, here we go. I mean, it's people that put maybe trash in the garden or whatever. That's not very respectful. And now that we talk about that, I think people should be considered also people who lives on the water, that it's appealing for the people who is on the water because it's water community. You know, when you with your boat and you see all kind of crap, it's nice from in front, but not from the water. Oh, okay, where are we going then? Now you talk about water vessels. For me, kayaks and all those kind of things, that should be the same way. Why have that exposed to everybody? Even when there is hurricane, nobody takes that away. Nobody. So I think if it's clean and the streets are clean, everything would. I always used to say cleanness bring cleanness, but we need to try to understand each other between neighbors and have respect. I think that's very important. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Claudine, would you please state your name and address?
I apologize. Claudine Vasseur, 6904 Venetian Way, Les Clark Shores, 33406.
Thank you. Ms. Mendez?
Hello, Yaslin, 1900 Carissa Road. I'm going to try to keep this as simple as possible. Currently, I'm expecting, so I'm trying not to get exactly what you guys just saw happen. This has nothing to do with the business issue. This has nothing to do with our trailer. It has nothing. Here's the letter she wrote to my home stating that she slept with my fiance. Here's the stuff that she has done.
This is I know.
This is what we're dealing with.
Ma'am,
She has the same lipstick on that she kissed.
all right.
This is. Thank you.
That's all I have. Petition police reports against me and I'll try to
Ma'am.
enforce the damn law.
Like I said, it's not a code issue. This is what she's been doing to my home.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind
Well-
everybody that we can't hear unless the microphone's being used.
Can we all just calm down, please? Right?
Enforce the law. Enforce
Ma'am,
it.
please stop shouting from the crowd. It's. Miss Smiley, yes.
I heard that.
I'm all for the boating community. We are a boating community and the boat should be allowed. This is, what I'm here for is about the enclosed cargo trailers.
Okay.
I took a petition around to my little section, Micah West, which has around 105 homes. And I got into 60 of the homes. And I asked them, were they okay with having 3 enclosed cargo trailers? And 86% of them only wanted 1 enclosed cargo trailer due to the curb appeal of it. Because it would, they thought it would detract from the neighborhood. 13% said no. 4 of them didn't want to sign because they didn't want to be involved. And I think that's why I got into 60 homes instead of 105 homes. But I did get into those 4 homes and they didn't want to be involved, and that's fine. The other 4 didn't want to take away anyone's rights. They thought they should be, it's their property. They should be able to do anything they want on their property. I have 75 signatures for Micah West, which you can have if you want.
Oh, I'll take it. Go. Thanks, Star.
Oh, you're welcome.
May I ask a
So,
question?
Sure.
When you asked the question to have them sign the petition, did you include the part that it was going to be required that they be behind fencing or?
yes,
Okay,
we discussed that.
Okay,
but
good.
we're not particularly behind fencing, but behind the house.
okay. Just
We
wanted
discussed
to
it,
clarify
and
that.
at first I kind of found out I was kind of strong arming a little bit. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want this to be fair. So I said, this is a situation, would you like to have 3 enclosed cargo trailers in your neighborhood? And, just picture it across the street from you. And they said, the 52, the 60 that said, yes to the petition. So no, they would not like to see the cargo trailers because it would be unsightly. Even if they weren't behind the house, sometimes they would be in front of the house and they thought it would bring their property values down. But also I found out lots of other things while doing this petition. All kinds of other things. One of the ones that didn't want to take away anyone's rights, he wanted to know, was he grandfathered in because he had been there a long time? So on our codes, can someone be grandfathered in to not have to go with the code changes? And I thought that was a very valid point because, some of these people have been here since the beginning of Lake Clark Shores. Another one suggested that maybe Lake Clark Shores could come up with an area to park the trailers. I don't know about a secured area, but it was a suggestion. Well, that doesn't sound too bad, a place for people to park the trailers so they don't have to park them on their private property. And then one though was a big van. Well, it's a big van with a ladder on top of it. It's going to have writing on it soon. They wouldn't sign because they just were worried that their van was not going to be allowed. And so that people have different, reasons for not signing. And several want clear rules to apply to everyone. They like everyone to know the rules. We don't even know what the rules are. If we knew what the rules were when we moved in, et cetera, we would know if we wanted to move here. And several were concerned about some of the town spending. Just for example, the cameras that are at all the ways to get in, I found out they weren't working. And there's just quite a few things on the town spending that people had questions about, just so you guys know. And that's about it.
So when, and you and I have spoken before on this topic, when you were asking them about the 3 cargo trailers, did you ask them how they felt about a cargo trailer, a jet ski trailer, and a boat trailer being on someone's property?
No, I told them this was strictly about the cargo trailers, that as far as I knew, the boat trailers were fine. But this was strictly enclosed cargo trailers. And I didn't want to confuse the issue.
And what are your, cause I know you don't like the 3 cargo trailers, which is fine, but what are your thoughts on the cargo, the jet ski and the boat?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with having an enclosed trailer, which isn't obtrusive. So as long as it's serving them out once a day, it goes in.
Mhm.
And we're a boating community. We should have boats. We should have trailers to do the boats, and those don't stick up over the fence or over the hedge either. Those are all fine. In somebody's backyard, who cares?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time, Star. Yeah, well, yes, sir. Sorry, hold on. It's right here.
Oh.
It's hard to write with. Hold on, sorry, was this already previously provided to us a couple meetings ago?
No, I just know.
This is just, okay.
Just Michael.
Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Mayor, you should have a motion to receive and file that document and make it part of the record of the meeting.
All right,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, done. Thank you, Charlie. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mark Hassel, 7205 Westlake Drive. Apologize for not being here on time. I was eating some lasagna and it was pretty good. So I had my.
Did you bring us any?
No time clock tonight,
Just
so you know
what
you
I
have
spoke on
time.
my shirt. I think there's a lot of issues going on this evening, different things, I don't know if they should be separated or put together. One thing, just listening to the conversations, the boating community, okay, we're a boating community. We live on a lake, but nobody's out there on the lake in a 30-foot Scarab with a 12-foot tuna tower. It's not a lake boat. So you say boating community, let me put my boat there because we're a boating community. You're not putting that boat on the lake. So that needs to be differentiated. The one thing I've kind of picked up on is there's a lot of discussion on length of boats and trailers and combinations. And one of the things I heard was about like a jet ski trailer. The jet ski trailers I've seen with 2 jet skis, they're only about 4 or 5 feet high. If you put that on the side of your yard with fencing, nobody sees a jet ski trailer. So I started thinking and I don't know what the restrictions are in a hedge height or fence height, but it's really a question of height and not so much length. So if somebody has 60 feet of combined trailers on the side of their house and I can't see it from the next door or driving by, kind of what's the difference? But if you have one boat that's 30 feet with a 12-foot tower or a motor home, a full-size bus that's 45 feet and it sticks up 20 feet above the fence or the hedge, that's something that reflects on curb appeal. So I think it needs to be defined length versus height. And I think the height is the bigger issue as opposed to the length. If you can't see it, then who cares how long it is? I can't necessarily see it. Mr. Daughtry brought up a good point about commercial vehicles. I don't have a commercial vehicle, but I take my car home back and forth every single day. If somebody has a commercial vehicle and it's wrapped or has a sign and it's a vehicle and a 1-ton vehicle, as far as what this says, that's a pretty good sized vehicle. If it's just come and going as a normal person, it's just a vehicle. You can go through Lake Clark Shores. There's a lot of vehicles that are wrapped, a lot of vehicles have signs, but there's not like there's a business going on that's coming and going. There's as you guys probably know, I ride a bike a lot. There's a house on 17th Avenue from Keller to 17th. It might be M&G Gutters or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That place every morning about 8:30 is operating a commercial business out of their house. There's like 10 cars showing up, 6 or 7 vehicles. It's like they have their office meeting in this guy's house. Nobody wants that going on in front of their house. Okay, of course, that's City of Lake Worth. So the question is, when does a trailer parked on somebody's side of their house or multiple trailers, when does that cross the line and become a business that's operating, that's a nuisance to all the other neighbors? So you end up having not just a trailer parked on the side of the house for 5 or 6 days at a time, or a boat that somebody parks over there for 2 or 3 weeks, but it's the daily coming and going. And I don't know if that can be addressed in some sort of ordinance about the movement. So my biggest thing was things need to be, obscured from the view from the roadway. And it's not necessarily a length, but a height issue. That would be my biggest concern. And then, of course, how much property does somebody have on the side of their house? I have I have no space on the north side of my property. I have some space on the south, but if I had to be backing trailers in 2 or 3 times a day or loading them and everything like that, I'm sure my neighbors would not appreciate that at all. So.
I wanted to ask you a question on the height. So my neighbor has an RV and a boat. He predominantly stores both on the side of his house. I don't have an issue with it. His RV towers above the fence. His boat has got a T-top, towers above the fence. I don't think it's like a tuna tower. Based on my recollection, I guess I should have that ingrained in my memory now, but I think it's just a regular old T-top. I don't think it's one you drive from the up top part. So with regard to you're talking the boats being behind the fences or being screened, are you suggesting that if a boat is screened, you can't see it from above the fence line, which then calls into question what makes the boat different from an RV? I'm just trying to understand what your thoughts are.
And maybe, and I don't know how complicated town ordinances can be, codes.
We're trying to make it more simple.
Right. But, I mean, I don't even know what the height of a fence is allowed to be, or a hedge even. But it's it's about compromise, because there is a trade-off that there are people who have boats that have a tower, just, a center console that sticks up, a T-top. And of course it's there and it's visible. But, how do you compromise that between the community as a whole and the rights of a property owner to store something on there? I don't have the answer. I just think that sometimes, from what I heard, we were saying, talking about like a lot about the length, but it's really about what is seen from the curb or the road as you're driving by. But by the same token, does that same boat go in and out every single day, or is it just goes out on Friday, comes back on Saturday?
Couldn't tell you, I don't pay that much attention to it.
So
it's not every day.
Right, but you don't notice it. But when all of a sudden, if that boat's coming in and out every day because it's a commercial fisherman, and you're getting woke up at 6:30 in the morning because they're backing a big, probably a 350 diesel type truck coming and going, then you're going to start noticing that sort of activity. So
okay. I appreciate where you're coming.
I'm not giving a thought on what should be done. It was just kind of my thought as I was listening to the different conversations.
Sure, I much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick question just before you go?
Yeah, please.
Mark, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but were you trying to make the distinction between a commercial trailer and like a residential trailer, or a commercial trailer and an unmarked trailer?
There's a difference between, an Econoline 150 Ford van that Mr. Daughtry has. Mr. Daughtry, you still here? Yeah, he's just got a basic work van.
But mine's a 1-ton van too.
Okay, a 1-ton. But it's not like he's operating a business directly from his home. He's driving his vehicle home.
Sure. No, I thought I missed it. Specifically about trailers, I thought you were kind of insinuating or alluding to, the commercial trailer versus just a blank cargo trailer, or a just blank trailer.
If a blank cargo trailer, say somebody has a car, they put in the trailer and it's stored on the side of the house, and it's within the code of, just sticks up 2 or 3 feet above a fence line, and it just sits there for 3 or 4 months at a time, nobody pays attention to it. But all of a sudden, if you have that trailer coming and going every day, it's a lot different than just a 1-ton vehicle that somebody just parks in their driveway. They leave at 9 o'clock in the morning, they come back at 5 o'clock, which, kind of use a kind of a coin like a normal person, just commuting back and forth in their vehicle.
Residential versus commercial is what
I have a Honda Element. I use my car for work a lot. There's no signage on it, but nobody would ever say, oh, that's a commercial vehicle. But, it's just, I leave in the morning, I come back at night. But when you have that constant coming and going and there's multiple trailers, I can see where that would be a nuisance to other people. So.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Y'all just come on up. Whoever gets to the mic first. I feel like I'm picking and choosing over here. Whatever you want to come up. Mr. Kulkarni can be next, and then there was someone over here. Y'all just feel free to walk on up.
Hey, good evening. My name's Jeff Cheyenne, 8121 Pine Tree. My only comment is going to be about the screening. So when we bought the house that we're in now, we were told the front line of the house, trailers had to be behind that, and that we could have two. So we have two. They're both behind the front of the house. And when you're talking about screening, it concerns me whether it's going to be a fence or hedging, because on one side of the house is where our septic tank and drain field's at. So obviously you got to be very careful putting in a hedge or fencing in that scenario. So I'm kind of wanting to back away from that. And then being able to see a boat or a trailer, to me, is not a bad thing that you see somebody's boat. You know, they have a big boat that exceeds the height of the fence. You know, everybody said it, we live in a boating community. If somebody's got a boat, hey, no big deal. It shouldn't be a secret, right? An RV, I don't have a problem with the RV. I don't have one anymore. So, and I don't have a utility trailer anymore, so I don't have a problem with that either. But the screening part also concerns me as far as what percentage, you know, does it have to be 100% non-viewable from a 6-foot high person on the middle of the roadway? I mean, it's a little picky.
So as the screening code is now, it just has to be behind the fence, not completely covered or not visible from anywhere, right? So it could be I don't know, 15-foot, you know, goes up 15 feet from the ground because it's a boat with a T-top, but your 6-foot fence covers it, you would be in compliance. You follow me?
Yeah.
So that's how the current code is.
All right. And then also, you know, when you're walking or riding your bike or just driving through, some people do value their privacy more than others, you know, so everybody each to their own. So if you don't necessarily want to have a high level of privacy and you want an iron fence, or you just want it back behind the front line of the house so that you can easily get to it, you know, whether with a dolly or with a truck, I think that should be satisfactory, you know, because the whole front of the house is clear and taken care of and maintained. And you have a trailer because you have a boat. So that's, you know, and behind the front line of the house, I think that should be sufficient.
So as it relates to the current code, your issue is more on the screening side than any of the other topics.
I do have a concern though, when we were talking a little bit about the kayaks and the paddle boards, if it could be designated as being a motorized vessel,
yeah,
then those would be excluded. And then, you know, if somebody's got 3 kayaks and 2 boats, you know, now you're screwed, you know, and you got to.
Well, yeah, when we were talking about that earlier, I'm going, well, you start adding up the feet to these things,
Yeah.
and it doesn't make any sense to do that.
Yeah, so if we can only talk about motorized to, you know, make that, you know.
And you said you had 2 trailers. Are they both watercraft?
Yes, 2 boat trailers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is one for like the ocean and one's for the lake?
No, one is for my lake boat and the other one is my son's bass boat.
Okay.
And the boat is on that trailer.
Because I know there's a lot of residents that have a lake boat and they have their ocean boat. Right?
Well, they're
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. Hey, I only got.
Here's a blue collar.
Yeah. I'm with you there, man. I'm not in that setup either.
So that's
It
all
would be
I-
nice. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yes, Mr. Kulkarni.
Good evening. My name Ashok Kulkarni. Address 8131 Westlake Drive. Something I may have mentioned before. I'm very much concerned about this proposal, because I used to work as architect planner for the county. What is proposed here, county allowed it on a 5-acre or 10-acre lots, like a AR zoning, agriculture and residential zoning, not on a smaller lot like ours. And if this is allowed, I really personally feel it will have negative impact on the property value as well as for the neighbor. It will have negative impact on the neighbors too. If that person want to sell the house and if they see that they will face the problem. You know?
Can you be Can you be a little bit more specific on what you're talking about?
See, actually, when I say negative impact, having three such a large vehicle, boats and all that on a smaller lot,
Ashok, are you talking about density, essentially, density of trailers?
density not in the person,
You're talking about three trailers.
size of that lot and having three vehicles, because then they get close to the neighbor property too. Visually also it is,
So if you don't mind, if I can kind of understand.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, and I had written this down, so it's the percentage or the number of trailers
yes, number,
in relation
Okay,
or in a
okay,
ratio
yeah.
to the size of the lot.
size of the lot,
Okay.
yeah, exactly, number one, okay. I also want to mention, I read our zoning, rather home occupation code. There is a reference, I'm talking about Lake Clark Shores, home occupation. There is a strong reference that whatever goes on there, it should not look like a commercial business is going on there. On one hand, we are talking that on one property. On the other hand, we are allowing such three vehicles on any other lot. So there is a conflict, in my opinion. Thirdly, have you compared this proposal with a similar lot with other towns, maybe village of Juno Beach? Maybe if you have got a new manager, I notice here, he might be able to tell us something like that is located there with a smaller property, it might be a good feedback. But I personally think before we propose this, one should really find out whether other towns are doing anything like that. And finally, I want to mention, if anybody can afford to have such three vehicle RV, boat and all that, in my opinion, they should afford to rent outside somewhere and put some of those vehicles there rather than on that particular lot. Because it will have negative impact on the town, on the neighbor, and that is not favorable. And that's why I personally feel we should be very seriously consider what we are going to allow. That's my suggestion.
Thank you. With regard to the current code, do you have any recommendations or suggestions? Because remember, there's nothing, I know what you're referring to, but there's nothing proposed to
Right.
town council to consider right now. We're gathering information and we're going to leave it up to the town and the town attorney to figure out a proposal based on what the residents are telling us that they would like, or that the needs are as it relates to the current status of the town and in comparison to the old code, or the current code, I should say.
So what the question is?
What are your thoughts on the current code?
Yeah, actually, something like that should not be there. in my opinion.
No, the current code.
Current code of what?
That's in place right now. The proposal with the three trailers, they could be three cargos, they could be a boat, a utility, and another boat. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's done, right? That's washed away,
Right.
right? So we're figuring, I just want to know what your thoughts are on the current code.
Right.
Do you want to see it changed at all?
No.
You want to leave it?
No, actually, my question is that number 3, what is mentioned there on this commercial vehicle? I'm not clear about that at all, really speaking. If you read that thing,
Can I see that?
What are
Just
you
so
looking at?
I just want to see it.
Huh?
Can I see what you're referring to? So I can understand?
Did you get this from
Okay.
the copy of the last meeting?
This,
I picked up this today.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is
The
this
last
is not
proposal.
actually before us. We're not,
Then why is it there?
for food for thought.
Ashok, he's asking you what you feel about this current code that is on the books right now.
Oh.
That was a moratorium was placed in effect until we
Okay.
figure this out. So
And-
yes, he's
and
got one right there behind.
I'd like to make sure that everyone understands that one commercial vehicle less than 1 ton is currently allowed
Yes.
on your property. The question that I've heard tonight is, should it be 1 ton or less? Because right now it's less than 1 ton.
Okay.
So you want to include a 1-ton vehicle? Or that's
I'm asking.
correct.
What you have today
Yeah.
is it's not just, it's not being up for consideration.
See, here it says actually, commercial vehicle one, recreational one, trailer utility. So they are,
I understand.
right.
Do you have any, I know what you don't want as far as what's that is, but do you have any thoughts on the current code and what you would like to see it change to, if anything?
No, actually, I'm not pretty familiar with that thing.
Okay.
Meaning, yeah.
Okay.
But,
Thank
but what is proposed is too much on a small property, on a residential lot.
On that note, so are you, it's the first time I've heard it from the audience, or even leading up to the meeting. Are you suggesting that, a smaller lot can have X number of trailers, whether they're boats or whatever they are, and then the larger lots can have more trailers?
Well, our town has not that situation at all. Really speaking, all lots are pretty small to begin with. There are no,
Well, we have like some acre lots, some 0.66, some half acre lots, some 0.45,
There's a
some
lot
sub
of big
point
lots here.
twos. I mean, Starkid, we might have more than one realtor in here, but
Start something.
I'm just saying is, I just want to understand, is that where you're coming from as far as percentage?
Yeah.
What Councilman Gonzalez asked you earlier, is that what you were getting at?
Yeah.
Like the smaller lots, 1 trailer total, period. The larger the lot, they can have 2 boats or a boat and a jet ski and such. Would you like to see it broken up that way?
yeah, something like that could be considered and screened. That's not a bad. But overall, I noticed our town has basically majority of the lots are pretty similar and fairly small lots, And that's one of the reason all these 3 on one particular lot is too much. That's what I feel.
Right, and then kind of on that, even though that's not before us and everything,
Right.
it's kind of the point. You can't, how many places could actually do it, right?
Yeah.
Like half dozen. I mean, it's really difficult to fit 3 20-foot trailers on any of these properties here. But again, doesn't matter because that's not
That's
before
one
us.
thing. And even though screening is there, if the vehicle or something is very tall, it doesn't really make much difference. I know it's not directly you can see that, but you cannot completely cover and hide it, That's another thing we should think too.
You want it to be completely covered?
No, but then actually the fence height will be too high,
Right,
So
right.
that is the problem. So at least some screening, when you drive, there is it is not very disturbing.
So for the screening, are you looking at the opaque where you can't see through it
Right,
at all?
it
Or are
should
you
be
like a chain link fence?
No. It should be open.
Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Good evening.
7205 Westlake Drive. I'm boatless. I'm golf cartless. I do have a stand-up paddleboard, but I'm too afraid to use it because jet skis have taken over our neighborhood. As far as the current codes, I think the screening, I don't have a problem with that. There's a lot of people that have their RVs and boats parked on the side of their house and there's no fence, but they're parked behind, even with the front of the house, and that's fine. I definitely agree, 1 commercial vehicle. I don't know that it makes a difference if it's a ton or less than a ton, but just 1 commercial vehicle on the property. Recreational vehicle is fine with the current code as well. Multiple watercraft, I think are fine, because people have jet skis, they have boats. Some people have kayaks on. My paddleboard's in the garage hanging from the ceiling, so it's very hidden. I kind of agree about the property size because there's some pretty large properties that could probably handle more of these kind of things on there than, like, there's a house, I think at Carissa and Forest Hill, that there's a semi-tractor trailer parked there. And that property is tiny and that semi-tractor is huge on that tiny piece of property. It would be better served for that house that the judge and Carol used to live at. But I think that, overall, what we have is pretty good. If we could kind of enforce it a little bit, would be great.
Thank you. Did you by chance make the lasagna?
No.
I bet say you got some compliments tonight.
All this talk of lasagna, I'm hungry.
Should have brought some for everybody.
Yeah.
I just want some clarity on the commercial vehicle. I just heard commercial vehicles brought up a couple times. 1 ton / commercial, define, can we get some clarity on a commercial vehicle? What defines a commercial vehicle?
Pandora's box.
I know
Well, Charlie's gonna get you.
my unmarked 350 or 450 is over 1 ton and it's not technically a commercial vehicle.
Then sit down.
I just
don't
want
think
to
the
make
pickup
sure I'm
truck is,
within
yeah.
code.
Let me read you what the code says. Any commercial vehicle which is a vehicle self-propelled by a motor rated at 1 ton capacity or greater, and which bears any sign or making which advertises or identifies any business or commercial venture, or which is used or designed for a business or commercial purpose, is prohibited. If it's less than a ton, it's allowed.
You know, because this is
So a
coming.
semi truck parked in a driveway
Not
is not
allowed.
allowed and should not be there, correct?
Absolutely. It should.
Correct.
Or designed for a commercial purpose is the, right, if it doesn't have a sign or designed for a commercial purpose, and I,
No, it's not allowed. There's another section in the code that absolutely does not allow it.
Something you didn't read.
Yes.
Sure.
Clem Brandenburg, 1890 Carissa Road, Clark. On the commercial vehicles, the property next to us has signage on all the vehicles, signage on all the trailers. Would that be considered commercial vehicles now that has signage on it?
is it over a ton?
It looks big. It's a Ford 250.
I don't have the weights, but
I don't know. The tons usually the capacity that is full and not the weight of the truck. This things are 6,000 pounds. You guys are mixing up tonnage.
The code doesn't talk about commercial trailers. It
No,
talks
this is
about
a truck.
commercial
Truck.
vehicle, and it says it is self-propelled by a motor. A utility or a cargo trailer is not self-propelled by a
No, I'm talking
motor.
about the trucks. The Fulton trailers have signage all over them.
If they're greater than a ton, they're,
What's a ton? I know ton's 2,000 pounds. Yeah. So you allow as many 3/4 tons with signage doesn't count as commercial, is my question. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The way my week, I just want to say how my weekend goes, starting Friday.
Mr. Brandenburg, talk into the microphone, please.
Starting Friday, the activity begins, goes throughout Saturday, but on Sunday at 2:30, I watched the commercial vehicles come in the backyard. It's the F-250 with its trailers hooked up in the backyard, slamming down the back gate and unloading all the equipment every Sunday. That would be considered a nuisance under the nuisance laws. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have a couple folks online that would like to speak whenever you would like to allow them.
Well, this gentleman is on his way, so we'll do them next.
Sorry about that.
No, you're all
Good
good.
advice. I just jumped up.
I want you to do that. Just come on up.
Tyler Glock, 7600 Westlake Drive. So I just, I see you're doing a little tally. I think it totally makes sense for people to have boats in a boating community. Although I don't own a boat, you could definitely throw a tally. I have a jet ski, so I guess so. But yeah, I was going to say, the size of lot thing too, where I live is a large lot, and I could for sure put a bunch of stuff there, which I'm not going to, but I have a trailer, a 12-foot trailer. And what I wanted to say was like, whatever stuff gets made, it's actually probably going to totally wreck my ability to keep the trailer, because there's no way to put any, first of all, nobody's pointed this out, but you can't put a trailer behind something that can't move. So if there aren't gates, you're not going to be able to pull the trailer out. So that's, unless you park the trailer sideways behind something, which would then give it even more street view. So where my yard is, I can't screen the front of the trailer, or else I wouldn't be able to move it because there's no gate, because it's a big open lot.
Can you put it to the side of past the front of the house?
It is.
Okay.
It is, but from my understanding of that, it says to screen it, and it's really set back and it's hidden, and I haven't really gotten any complaints about it recently. Years ago I did, but not so much recently. But yeah, I just want to say there would be like no way for me to be in compliance. And I mean, I've lived here like, I think 9 years now. So it'd just be, it'd be a bummer for me to have to get rid of it. And I just want to touch on something else. I was talking to somebody in the town that's not here right now, but actually, the reason I ended up getting a trailer is because it was so hard to build a shed here. The permits and everything were so expensive, and construction for the winding and all that I read the code. I went on the website and I said, I could just go buy a trailer and put it in my backyard.
So you have a cargo trailer?
Yeah, an enclosed cargo trailer. So, I'm sorry. I know it's like, everybody's upset about trailers, and to comment on the 3 trailer business thing, I think that's a little ridiculous and shouldn't be allowed. But, I got a trailer because it would have cost me $10,000 to build a 10 by 10 shed. And I rent, I'll tell you all, I've lived there for 9 years. I can't do that, so I'm just trying to find a solution to live, and I hope these rules don't like negatively impact me. And if they do, I guess it's the way of the world and it happens and I accept it. Something else I want to mention, I've been involved with a couple different zoning projects with the county in different aspects, one being Palm Beach International Raceway, and that whole deal with the sale to Amazon. And an interesting point they brought up in that zoning committee, which I was in attendance from, is they did a zoning impact report on the business on 440, on the road out there where they were going to build it. And the way that, to be honest, we actually didn't want them to destroy the racetrack and build an Amazon warehouse. And we were trying to figure out any way we could fight it. And the way that we actually fought it was from the traffic impact that it would create in the community. So we showed that they were not able to sufficiently plan for the commercial vehicles coming in and out of that area in a safe manner that wouldn't endanger or disrupt essentially the road system. So I also agree, from my little knowledge of working with some zoning departments on some projects, that that may be a zoning issue and not a trailer issue.
Before you go, so what were the type of complaints you received as it related to your trailer? In the past, you said it was years ago.
Honestly, to tell the real story, it was a neighbor who just didn't like it because they could see it. And, it's funny because someone else had brought up, if I was going to speak more, I tried to keep it short, but I do think it is super important to love thy neighbor. That person, actually, we had a little bonding experience with something that, I was able to be a good neighbor about, and they haven't called since. So I guess, it's above that. But I will say, since that, I've never gotten, I like my neighbors. I help my neighbors. They all know me. I know them. We all like each other. I do think it's also a matter of respect. And, somebody who isn't my direct neighbor may drive by and be like, oh, this guy's got a motorcycle outside. I get it, but for as far as everybody who, lives around me, I just try and be a good person and respectful. And I just, am sitting in here and seeing people not being respectful to each other. And I think that's kind of an outside issue, outside of a trailer.
Where did you say your
you on
address was
Langford?
again?
7600 Westlake.
Is that adjacent to Langford?
Yeah.
Okay, I know where you are.
Yeah, I'm on the corner too. So
Yeah,
all kinds of issues with my trailer. I would just never be, and that's why I came, because I knew I'd never be in compliance. So I just figured I'd share my piece. I get, everyone has their houses, and most houses are a certain way, but I'm never going to make it there.
So your issue with the current code would be the requirement for the screening, the opaque screening.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
or even it's behind the front of the house, but your hardship would be
the screening,
with the keeping of the current code, the screening aspect of it, whether it's
correct,
hedges or a gate.
Yeah, and I mean, a way you could modify that would be to make it within a certain amount of feet of the house. So if somebody did have a big enough lot where it wasn't something that stuck right next to their neighbors, within I don't know, a certain distance from something. Cause again, it's a big property, you know, it just kind of sits there off in the woods, to be honest with you, like, you know.
Oh, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. It's pretty far away from your house.
Oh, yeah.
But it's
It's-
behind the front of the house.
And my neighbor Tony behind me.
It's black, is it black?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Which I
yeah,
which I bought purposely so it would like blend in, you know, a black one.
okay, yeah.
And I know, like, I just look around my neighborhood and I have one neighbor who has a trailer in his driveway in front of his garage, which is not technically within compliance, but, you know, I know him personally. I know his situation in life and like, he might be impacted on that. And then another neighbor I know that has a motor home would definitely be impacted. So I'm just concerned with, you know, I know we want to enforce rules and everything wants to look right, but like, are we enforcing these rules to remedy a one situation, you know, and it's going to impact me and two other people I know really well and don't want, you know, to have to go through that. So that's all I.
No, look, I appreciate it. And that's really the purpose. There are many purposes, as I said before, but this is one of them. We want to know how does the current code impact you or anybody that you do know if it was to be enforced, you know, in totality, if you will.
Yeah.
Because there have been portions of the code that have been enforced for years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if it's possible to allow some of the folks online an
Yeah.
opportunity to be heard.
Make
one
one suggestion before you do that, and I'll get out of your way.
Well, I already said I would do that. What's your suggestion?
Is it possible in terms of size of lot, you have your house, your screen patio, your pool,
That's going to take a
that
minute.
the maximum would be the percentage of it?
Let's get back to you in a second. Let's go to online.
I have more lasagna left over, so.
Did you write it down?
I think Mr. Kilcarney brought up,
I'll send an email or something.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
We're going to start with Mike Bredaway.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if Mike is able to buzz in, but I do have an email that was
I thought he's online.
sent.
Is he there?
He is
He
online.
was online, he
but
just
he's at a-
self-muted.
He's at an emergency, he was part of emergency operations for the hurricane. So I do have a statement from him that was emailed to me earlier. And it's Mike Bredaway at 1410 Carambola Road. And Mike, if you can come on, come on. If not, in a few seconds here, I'll just read your statement. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here it goes. This is a statement from Mr. Bredaway. I had planned to attend this meeting and would have preferred to bring this message in person, but I could not because of my job in the emergency hurricane response for the current storm. First of all, I don't think we would be here discussing this ordinance if there had not been complaints from a resident about neighbors operating a valid accredited business out of their home. The resident has asked code enforcement on several occasions to fix that problem, but it will not change the fact that the neighbors' trailers are now parked legally behind a fence. The same resident has posted often about the situation on Facebook, and other residents have joined the discussion, often without being aware of what the current ordinances are and the misinformation that the resident has spread. This is an issue between neighbors and should not be made the whole town's problem. If there are issues about something, they could be dealt with by speaking directly to a neighbor first instead of relying on a town ordinance, which would only make the situation more difficult to resolve. Hash it out as neighbors first instead of using a tattletale response and then getting the town involved. Find out what can be done to please the neighbors and work it out with them. A couple of weeks ago, I took a ride through our town and counted at least 175 instances where either a trailer, boat, RV, or work branded vehicle is in violation of the current code. We should not be made to do something now that no one has had a problem with it for the past 50 years. We are now looking at making changes to the code just because one resident has made multiple complaints about her neighbor and wants changes made to the code to suit her needs. What about the rest of the current residents, especially the 175? She's bringing this up as a problem because the town wouldn't fix her other problem. This is a boating community with our own boat ramp. It seems logical that many residents will have a boat on a trailer that they park on their property. I think that the following section should be removed from the ordinance. This goes on for quite some time. And I'm going to try to paraphrase some of this because that's not before us. And Mr. Mayor said we're starting at a blank slate here, but he's talking about the maximum height of 4 feet, fence shall not be made maximum of 6 feet if landscaping use, so that whole paragraph. Here are the reasons for my removing that wording from the ordinance. First, most residents do not have 3 foot off the property line to the vehicle being parked. Therefore, no trailer would fit those parameters. The 3 foot off the property line provides for a maintenance path for your neighbors. However, if it is a trailer of any kind, it is mobile and can be moved for a maintenance path, so your neighbors can maintain their fence or shrubs. Second, it should be the resident's choice to fence or screen their trailers, boat, RV on the side of the residence from the road. I see most attempts as being unsightly since you can still see the boats anyway. It is more than sufficient to have anything you have parked on the side of your house to be behind the building line of the structure. Some residents' property even allows for space for their trailers fully in their backyards. We could be like Palm Beach and all of us plant a hedge or a wall across the entire front property line with a gated entry. There are some properties already like this. I think that looks hideous unless you live in the acreage with cattle and horses. Third, we have had many new residents recently who have moved into town and they are made aware of the ordinances about trailers, boats, RVs, commercial vehicles, or any other codes. I can think of at least one new resident who has a boat parked in a driveway. That property does not have any room on either side of the house to park any kind of trailer. Getting back to the complaint by the resident that started the discussion, I'm not going to read that. So if you need a copy of, I don't know if that's a direct quote or not, and I don't know where this starts or stops, but that's the statement.
And Mayor, we need a motion to receive and file and make that part of the record. And there does need to be one clarification because there is a misstatement in there. The resident never asked for the code to be changed. The resident asked for the code to be enforced.
Thank you. Yes.
And again, I'm just reading what somebody.
All right, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I just pass it down here. I'll keep it with this petition.
Actually, that's in the minutes, please.
So this was just, I had an opportunity to review your petition. This is just specifically related to more than one enclosed cargo trailer. Got it.
Very focused.
Thank you, Star.
Oh, you know.
Anybody else online?
Yes, sir. Mr. Rivera?
Sure.
Good evening, guys. Leonardo Rivera, 1900 Carissa Road.
Go ahead, Mr. Rivera. Welcome.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Hello. Yes. So I think, we, as long as we could fence them in or screen them, the trailers, boats, I think we should all be able to have what we want. And it is my neighbors that brought it up because of me. They came after the business. They came after my trailers. They put cameras on my tree facing in my yard. So it's not my fault that they know what I have in my backyard. So I just believe that we should be able to store what we want in our backyard as long as it's in the fence, which I do have. I've been in fixing whatever Miss Louise has complained about.
I'm gonna object to this. I'm not gonna.
I've tried to fix everything she asked for.
Did we lose him?
Mr. Rivera, are you still there? Maybe we can put him on hold, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor. We
we'll
have
go on
one
to
more.
someone else and when he comes back.
We have one more here. Miss Kathleen Booth.
Hi, can you hear me?
Good evening. We can hear you.
Hi, good evening. The one thing that I'm a little confused about is everybody's saying that this code was never enforced. And I moved in here in 1998, and I would say it was enforced for at least the first 10 years I lived here, and parts of it were enforced after that. And the main reason I know that is just because of neighbors having to put hedges up and fences up and all of those kind of things. The one thing I do feel very strongly about is that it should be opaque. I have personally had to put up a privacy fence, a white privacy fence. There was a chain link fence before. I put it up just to not have to see what was in that backyard. I can promise you that if there was any kind of trailer there, it would be a mess, because my understanding is the current code is, like, I remember Dana telling me she couldn't go into anybody's backyard to see what was back there. So I drove around the town just kind of as devil's advocate, and there's a lot of great boats that are parked back behind fences and things you can see. And it's not even so much the boats, it's the other stuff. But what happens is, just tonight when I walked my dog, I'm walking around here looking at the boats that are sitting in people's driveways that shouldn't be there. And there's coolers next to them, fishing rods, and there's battery chargers, and there's all of that peripheral stuff. So if it's behind something that's opaque, you don't see that. And then as far as the commercial vehicles, we have a lot of, I mean, even a lot of homeowners associations and everything, is they just have people have the magnets, and they take them off. So I don't care at all about vehicles, or, you know, we have a couple people that work for a radio station in town. You see those vehicles, like, none of that bothers me, but I think we've gotten very messy. And if anybody chose to drive the circle where I live right now, there's currently 3 trailers sitting in people's front yards that are just front yard. You know, I think all of this should be enforced, but it should be behind the fence. I mean, I chose to put my fence in because I don't look at it anymore, but that's pretty much just, you know, what I want to say. But that this code was definitely enforced in the beginning. I moved in here in 1998, and Joe definitely enforced it, and Dana enforced it when she was here in the beginning. So, you know, I don't think it was an all or nothing, and I do not feel that there should be a grandfather clause, because if that's the case, then why are we even doing this? So that's it.
Thank you. Before you go,
yeah,
with regard to the opaque screening, is that limited? Is that limited to any particular type of trailer, or is it across the board? Boats, jet skis, cargo. If it's a trailer, it needs to be behind opaque screening.
I think it's pretty much every. My backyard going over at somebody up through a chain link fence. I'd much rather it be an opaque fence or hedge, even if it was a fence with a hedge. You know, a 6-foot hedge, that would be fine. But I mean, the fence makes it easy. But I have no issue at all seeing things over people's fences and tops the boats and tops the trailers or anything like that. I think most, you know, I don't care about any of that. It's just the bottom stuff and what's on the ground all around it. Sorry, that's my dog.
All good. Thank you very much for your comments.
Welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Those are sometimes difficult to just hear.
Back to Mr. Rivera.
Oh, is he back? Okay.
Says he's self-muted.
Mr. Rivera, if you're available. Still muted. Mr. Rivera?
Hello?
Hey, we have you now. We hear you.
Yes?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure if you guys heard anything I said earlier.
We heard.
Okay, so no, I was just saying, I believe that, you know, as long as everything is.
We're having some technical difficulties. If you can hear me, I believe your main thing was as long as it's screened and put behind a fence and you can't see it, that's your preference.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think that should be that should work. And you know, I believe that a lot of people joined this petition with false information. You know, she gave information that wasn't accurate about me and my business, my house, whatever I have going on, and that's why a lot of people, I believe, you know, they're agreeing with her. You know, I just wanted to be fair, and that's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I
Thank
think I
you.
heard lost a family member, and on behalf of the council, our deepest condolences.
Yes, I'm actually on the road right now. I'm driving to Mexico, an emergency, so that's why I have really bad service.
I'm sorry to hear that. Please drive safe, sir.
Thank you. You guys have a good night.
You too. All right. Good evening, my friend.
How are you? Council members, good evening. Ariel Hernandez, 1401 Coranda Circle, also known as Lake Clark North. So I don't like the idea of being prescriptive with, because it makes enforcement difficult. You have basically a legal if and equations equivalent. So being prescriptive of like, hey, only so many trailers and of this kind and that kind, you know, that becomes very difficult for one to enforce for the officer and for the code enforcement board.
And for those that don't know,
I was about to disclose.
he is one of our code board members.
Yeah, I've been on the code enforcement board. I think it was 2014. Since 2014. And so I'm here as a citizen and resident, and not necessarily on behalf of the board, but I am sharing, you know, some of my experiences as a code enforcement board member. So being prescriptive, I think it just makes it difficult from a writing and enforcement perspective. All right. I like about the current code, it requires it being behind the front fascia of the property and being screened. And I think that's sufficient. I think we several years ago, and I think Paul, you may have been on the board at the time, Mayor, you were on the board at the time, and I think we changed. I mean, not the code itself, but the council at the time changed the code around the hedges in town. Like we removed the restriction on height. So so theoretically, people can hide the view of their neighbors by planting tall hedges along the perimeters of their property and screen it that way. Commercial businesses, I think, you know, many of us homeowners here, residents, are small business owners, and there are different kinds of small businesses. It's a very broad term. So we have attorneys and doctors, dentists. We have tradespeople, like everybody knows Tim, he's an electrician. We have home service companies, lawns and painters and things like that. And I think where that becomes a problem is more so about it becomes a nuisance when there is traffic driven based on the activity of that business. And I think that we have a number of solutions already in the codes to address this. We have nuisance laws, noise. We have, for example, we can't park on lawns. You know, and if we don't, I thought we did. I'm reacting to your reaction, Mr. Shahu. But I thought we did, and if we don't, we should, because I know City of West Palm has that. And that's something that prevents the degradation of properties. So it keeps properties keeping clean and looking good. So limiting them, you know, preventing vehicles from being parked on lawns. You know, there's a limit to, you know, how many cars can be parked in a driveway. There's hours of operation, and there's other things that you have to thread the needle to make sure that you're not violating operating, being and for example, an independent, an attorney could have could work from home and then go to court, right? Theoretically, and meet with clients offsite somewhere. So, we don't want to, we don't want to limit people's abilities to make money, to produce income for themselves and their families. But I think that we can leverage tying together the other codes in the book to create enforcement, to create compliance. Because you have, well, if this doesn't apply here, or if it applies to this extent here, you then point to the nuisance, the noise law, for example. And I also like to suggest something more of a framework for designing the codes and writing them. And there's, to some degree, there's in that, there's some of it, but I think a more explicit, like a declaration, so that we understand what the intent of the code is when it was first written and what we are addressing. Because that historical, or that intent really gives us a guidance, one, for the law enforcement officer, and two, for the code enforcement board. And then we can use that as a premise for our decisions on enforcement at the board. And then also writing them so that they're, if they're easy to understand, we get compliance, because it's very obvious, it's very easy for people to do. And then enforceability. If we make it so it's easy to enforce, that creates compliance, and it creates consistency on the enforcement, as well as the, I guess, the compliance. And then lastly, I think that that whenever we have, I think this was a great venue for this. I think this is a good process to have to do this, have this workshop, and I think that partnering with the code enforcement board and maybe even delegating this to them, because after all, you guys only make what, $100 a month or something, and how many hours a week? But in all,
We don't do it
seriousness,
for the money.
I think, I know. I think that, I think we have capacity to do this, and we have maybe relevant information, like more real-time relevant information at the code enforcement board, where you guys have to, you're at a higher level, you have to kind of come down into the weeds of this and step back and make a decision. And I think that having the code enforcement board there to process this with the public effort, involvement, I think could also maybe create, implement a new process for these types of issues and resolving them.
I think that's a great idea.
And I think I'm done. Thank you for.
Hold on before
Yeah.
you sit down. May I, Mr. Mayor?
Please, yeah.
You've been on the board since 2014?
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it. The town appreciates it.
You're welcome.
I have just one question. In your time, did anybody come to the code board and complain about the current code the way it was? Over the years, have they just?
The only
I mean,
people
not-
who come to the code enforcement board are those who've been found in
They
violation.
don't
and
come other than the people who are found in violation.
There's like two, and one ended up becoming a code enforcement member after so many years of attending, but really is only.
I thought you might get to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the answer to that question is no.
Yeah, that's correct. No. What, yeah, what we get are just whatever's brought, whatever is found in violation by the officer and are not corrected within the first, I think it's 30 days or.
But the residents have the ability to attend that meeting. That's a public
Absolutely.
meeting.
Residents
and it is
have,
advertised.
yeah, residents have the ability to attend that meeting every month, once a month. It's the last Wednesday of every month, or fourth Wednesday of every month. And they, we, just like the town council meeting, we have an agenda, and we have time for audience comments at the end and discussion amongst the board after resolving all of the cases that are before us that night. So, yeah, if people want to bring things up, that's also a good place to
Thank you
learn
again
and
for your
experience.
service.
You're welcome.
Greatly appreciate it.
Before you go, did you have, so we've heard comments today about screening opaque, non-opaque, and then no screening and having it just behind the house, behind the front of the house. And my notes reflect that your preference is opaque screening. Does that, am I right about that so far?
Yeah, if yeah, a
Is that
fence
to-
qualifies, a bush is,
Okay. Is that across the board to all trailers, or is that limited to non-watercraft trailers?
I think that for any kind of vessel or vehicle or trailer that is not part of like the regular vehicles that that the household drives, or
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If they have a muscle car that they can't keep in the garage, I don't think it would look good just sitting there in the front drive unless it's, again, for example, we have the registration, vehicles have to be registered.
Right.
Currently, right? Current with the registration.
Right.
There's all kinds of ways to enforce issues. Oftentimes, we don't even need to create a new code, so.
Right,
Or
thank you
change-
very much.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask Ariel a question?
Yes, sir.
Did I understand you to say that the height of a hedge?
Do I have immunity, by the way? Before I should have asked that before speaking on the record.
Did I understand you correctly to say that the height of a hedge was modified?
It was, yeah, we removed, the town removed, I say we as a town removed the limit.
The
of
height? It was 8 feet,
It
correct?
was 8 feet and
Now there's,
now there's no limit, so you can go as
high
as that beanstalk will grow.
as high as that wind will let it grow.
Right.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to make that perfectly clear. Because I started looking it up here, and that's, the funny look was I couldn't find it. Thanks,
Sorry to
Ariel.
call you out.
No, that's
Thank you.
okay. That's okay.
All right. Anybody else? Want to share some thoughts, ideas? Yes, sir.
Brett Thompson, 1931 Mediterranean Road. I would wish that you would have a provision in the new code, if you do elect to do the new code, that would allow for a non-enforcement on a condition that met all the criteria that existed at the time of the construction or the purchase. So for example, if I had a boat in my side driveway and I lived on a corner lot, and that driveway was specifically put there so I could have a boat or a camper in that driveway, that I would not be enforced upon because you made a new rule that superseded it.
You want to be grandfathered.
No, I wouldn't call it a grandfather. I would just call that you would give the enforcement staff an opportunity to say that he complied at the time of construction or at the time of purchase with the provisions that existed within the code at that point in time. So if he wants to elect to put a hedge or do this or do that, he can, but you wouldn't, it wouldn't cause an enforcement action against him.
So if you're in compliance with the old code,
If you're
and the
if
new
you're in-
code
it's like-
gets,
It's like I built my house in 1979. 1979, the current rule was you had to have your boat or your camper or your trailer behind the front projection line of the house. Since I was on Mediterranean, I was facing south. So when I was doing my plans and I'm working with the building official, he said, well, if you change your plan and take your garage from facing to the south, the Mediterranean, and put it over at the corner lot, over to the side on Wilton, then you could put your boat there, right? So when we did this rule change like 25 years ago, my boat was sitting there and everybody recognized my boat was there. But the rule said now you have to have it behind the front projection line of either road, right? So trying to be a good neighbor, I put my stuff kind of behind the not in my side yard, but basically in my backyard. So now if you take the front projection line along Wilton and the front projection line along Mediterranean, I got it behind the building envelope, which superseded the code that I thought about, maybe I should block in my garage on Wilton and then make a garage door on Mediterranean and then fence or hedge along Wilton. But I'd have to take out the trees and I'd have to cut up driveway and I'd have to move septic tank and, it would have cost too much. So I said, well, to try to appease everybody, I would put the stuff back behind the projection line. And I did that, but I see like in this code now, you feel sorry for the enforcement staff with code compliance because all this stuff is very ambiguous. When you say, okay, I can have 55 feet of boat, and you got kayaks back there, or you got paddle boards back there, or you got john boats back there, or you got whatever, you start doing that aggregate limit, and is it included in the trailer, or is it just the boat, or is it the boat in a trailer, and is it, we counting 55 for the trailer to the tongue, or is it the boat listed in the registration? All these things can come up, and I feel really sorry for the staff because it's a very gray area, and it was back 25 years ago, which they tried to, forge the current rule out. But for me, like I'm just looking at the new stuff, and in one of these sections, it says.
That's not new, that's gone.
No, I'm saying the one that's drafted right here.
Yeah. Or just so you know, that's, please
Go
talk
away.
about it, but we're not considering.
Just the first right off the bat, it says, none of the vehicles or equipment described in subsection 1B can be parked between the area between the street lot line and the structure. So that sounds to me like even if I put a fence or a hedge along Wilton, right? And I spent money to do a concrete boat pad over here. I couldn't even put my boat where I had intended to put a boat on a concrete pad that exists, even if I screen it. They're forcing me to say, you have to be behind the building envelope. And then the other thing in here, it says you have to have 3 feet between your property line and your boat. So, years ago, I put a pad along the east side of my house that's 8 feet wide and it's 1 foot off the property line. And I got a boat sitting there. The boat trailer axle is about 8 feet wide and the pad's about 8 feet wide. So now I'm 1 foot off of that. So if I have to go if they adopt this code, then I'll have to come in here and I'll have to like pull my hedges out along the house and move my boat over, 2 feet to comply with that 3 foot setback rule. But now if I go over here 3 foot, now I'll have my tires on the earth, the grass. So if you go back to another section in the code, it says you can't have basically tires on the grass. We want it on pavement. So now do I got to put a 2 foot ribbon of, so these things can really domino. So if you had a provision in here that said, listen, if you did your due and you went and talked to the building official and you were supposed to put this here in this particular manner, and that was what the intent was, that if you adopt something new, that you don't get enforced upon by doing what was legal at the time.
So just again, just so you know, what you're reading from,
Yeah.
we're not considering that.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want to get back to what your comments. Did you go and alter your property to come into compliance with the current code?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't alter the property. I moved the vehicle, I moved the stuff around to come into compliance.
Okay.
I didn't tear driveways out or move septic tanks or change pads. I just physically put my trailers back to where everybody was happy.
Okay. So then your recommendation is to, if you're in compliance with the current code, and then there's a change to the code that's adopted by the town that would then render you out of compliance, you want to be grandfathered in.
I would want.
He wants some consideration to the fact that he adhered to what was told to him at the time.
Sure.
Let me give you a really quick example.
Well,
I got a Ford truck.
It's
Yeah.
grandfathered.
Right,
You
but-
can look at it any way you want.
It's not necessarily grandfathered. Our code for 50 years has given them 6 months to come into compliance. When the code changed, they had to come into compliance on this issue within 6 months.
So if you suggest, Mr. Scheck, that anyone who is not in compliance, if we change it, shall not need to come into compliance,
For 6 months.
period.
You could do that. That's an enforcement nightmare because the code enforcement officer is not going to know who is and who isn't. But yes.
Let me ask you this.
It's typically done for building issues. It's not typically done for zoning issues.
For, you know,
And the other thing that you have to consider, if we adopt an ordinance that doesn't change the section, just because we haven't enforced the ordinance for a number of years does not give anyone compliance. So for example, if you have right now 2 cargo trailers on your property, you're in violation. You've been in violation the whole time. You just didn't get cited because it wasn't enforced. You don't get grandfathered because you're in violation.
Right.
If you were not in violation and you change it, you could consider grandfathering.
Thanks for the clarification, Charlie.
with regard to what Mr. Thompson's saying here, Charlie.
Mhm.
And there's a revision to the code that then would render his setup as it is now in violation. And he has 6 months to comply, but he's like, look, nobody had an issue with it. I'm fine with it. I did all these things. Could he, or any similarly situated homeowner, come and ask for a variance of sorts and relief from the code?
No, that does not fall under the category of variance. There's no hardship.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, what if you had, so my side driveway is 8 feet wide. It's 1 foot from the property line. There's a fence and a shrub there from my neighbor, which has no problem with it. But what if there was 9 feet? What if my house overhang hit the top of the boat and I physically couldn't do that? So now, what would you want me to just like get rid of the boat or tear the house down and move it over? Or, I mean, some of this stuff, everybody wants to get along with their neighbors, and if something can be done, you do it. You know, if some neighbor wants this done, you work it out. But a lot of times, if you can find yourself constrained by the code where physically it would be super costly or impossible to meet something, which was not a problem to begin with, and you went through the due process of permitting and asking everybody, and everybody at the time when you did it said it was okay, and you have the paperwork and you have the ownership consistent with that doctrine.
Yeah.
So I mean, just real simple. If I got a Chevy, I mean, if I got a Ford truck, right, and Star goes around the neighborhood and says, would you rather have a Ford truck or would you rather have a Lexus in your driveway? And 87% of the people say, I'd rather see a new Lexus in the driveway. And she comes to the council and says, listen, town council, everybody in our neighborhood wants Lexuses. They don't want Ford trucks, right? So I've got a Ford truck, but you adopt a rule that says you can't have Ford trucks anymore. People don't want them. So what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Get rid of my Ford truck? You see what I'm saying?
I understand. Are you currently, as far as you know, in compliance with the current code?
I think I am.
Okay. So you don't have an issue with the current code?
No.
Is basically what I'm.
Well, I had an issue 25 years ago with the current code because I was back on the code in 1979. And I felt like in 1979, I did my due. I built my house. I talked to the building official. I looked at the rules and I was in perfect compliance. And I felt like I got run over when I couldn't have my boat and my trailer in the side driveway because I specifically set the house up that way on the corner lot so that I could do that. because a corner lot back then was advantageous. A corner lot on the new rules isn't advantageous because you basically are saying you can't use the side of your house, your side of your lot that's on adjacent to the road now. So now you have to put your stuff in your backyard. So it really kind of hindered that, you know, the desirability of the corner lot. So at 79, it was very desirable. Now it's not very desirable because you'd have to, and now if the new rule got put in here, you couldn't even do a fence along your side adjoining road and put a trailer in the other way. So these things, I know they're just writing, but when you really dissect them and look at them, it can really have hardship on people.
Sure.
I mean, just as simple things like 3 feet, 1 feet, you know, everybody agrees 3 feet of side setback's better than 1 foot. But what if you have a boat and you can't, and if you do, you're legal and you did everything right and you got it sitting there, it's been sitting there for 40 years, but now a new rule comes up and that says, okay, you can't have that boat in there anymore because, you know, you don't meet this, you know? So anything with numbers in it makes it very hard for me to understand. Makes it very hard for code enforcement to understand. And, you know, I mean, who knows? Everybody says, all right, screen it. You don't have to worry about it. But, you know, today's technology is you'll have drones up and you'll have people cruising the backyard and measuring this boat and that boat and this kayak and that trailer and this, you know, and it, you know, that's the world we live in. So if you had something in here that said, listen, if you bought the Ford truck and everybody allowed Ford trucks in your neighborhood, just because we've said no more Ford trucks, everybody's got to have a Lexus, you don't have to get rid of your Ford truck and buy a Lexus.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Or Chevy.
Mr. Thompson, the clerk asked if you would state your name and address again, please. Into the microphone, it doesn't pick up back there.
It's Rhett Thompson, 1931 Mediterranean Road.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else here in the audience or online?
No, sir.
If I don't get that, can I say one thing?
Can I trust that you're not going to get mad and yell at people?
I did pull up the codes for Lake Louise Brandenburg, 1890 Carissa. I brought up the codes for Lake Park, Palm Springs, Lantana, Juneau, Palm Beach Gardens. Where else? West Palm, North Palm. And I want to say something. We have to register our golf carts in this town. Why are we not registering our trailers? You would know then that I have a 26-foot boat, that I have a paddle boat, and that I have a cargo trailer. Okay, you would know that if you had to register the boats or the trailers, I think our code says that they have to have current tags on them, correct? So you would know if the tags are current. You would know what people had, and then that couldn't be, code enforcement can't violate somebody because they don't know. So, and personally, I have ours shielded by a 6-foot white fence because I looked at the code when we purchased our boat, and that's what I thought I had to do. And so if you're going to change that we don't have to have them shielded, are you going to rebate us all of the ones that did shield our boats as we were supposed to with the code?
No.
So I'm only asking that the code got enforced, and I really resent the fact that the trailer issue became my issue because it wasn't. Thank you.
Any other comments? Anything online?
No, sir.
All right. Gentlemen up on the dais, would you like to add to the discussion?
I think there's a lot of people who already do abide by the current code. I agree with the curb appeal. I know this is a boating community. I've set it up here before. This just needs a lot of work and a lot of consideration because these are all valid points.
And it's gonna take some time.
On that note, you know, I think idealistically, there was certainly a goal on my behalf to have this meeting and then be able to jump back in and say, hey, Dan, Charlie, town staff, you know, compile something for our consideration. I don't know if we can, I don't know how we could act that fast. I feel like we need to, the town needs we need to come up with some ideas and then maybe have either another workshop to go over a proposed change, or have further discussions once we had a chance to digest all this information and review everything and determine, you know, what, if any, changes should be made. I just don't think that, I mean, there's a lot. I wrote down so much stuff. There's just no way, I think between now and the next meeting, which is next week, that there's going to be a way for us to have something proposed, whether it's keep it and change absolutely nothing, which based on what I'm hearing, it's not the consensus. But then there's certainly a lot to consider if we do change it into what. I definitely want to make it more clear. I want to figure out a way to make it a lot easier to read. Yeah. What are y'all's thoughts?
There's a lot going on. And if you recognize me, Mr. Mayor, I just figured I'd jump in.
Yeah, come on.
I thank you for all the residents who've taken time out of your schedules and to be here at almost 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, I don't think that issue is lost on us. I think we really appreciate it because, you know, having that draft before us really brought up a significant amount of issues on all sides, on different sides. I think one of the big takeaways, you know, Lake Clark Shores is not a cookie cutter community. And I think we all like it that way. We got a really good vibe and a good mix. And you know, the thing that I keep hearing is community, and curb appeal and certain different things. And then obviously respect and love thy neighbor and, you know, a lot of different of these concepts. And we want to, as a council, we want to emulate that. We want to put that forth into our community. And, you know, the current code, you know, for our next meeting, I think that we need to be able to look at it and what are the non-negotiables, you know, and just kind of off the top of my head, Rhett, was it? You know, when he started speaking, I just thought, okay, well, is it screened or is it behind the property line? Does it have to just be behind the property line? Can it be screened or, you know, is that substantial compliance? There's a bunch of people along Pine Tree Lane that have their trailers, doesn't have a boat on it. It's behind the property line. And honestly, I had to look. I really had to like strain myself while I'm passing. And it's very nondescript. It's in a shady area on the side of their house and it's well taken care of. It's frustrating that this code hasn't been enforced with regularity and with even-handedly. Not that I say even-handedly, but regularly, I guess I could say. We can't necessarily expect that compliance is going to happen overnight. We're hearing not necessarily, you know, significant hardships, but certainly people, there's a gentleman that said, hey, I can't do it because of my septic tank. That's a big issue, or his drain field. Grandfathered in, that was kind of a big one. But Mr. Hernandez brought up, you know, a framework or the spirit of the law. I brought up what is the spirit of this code and what is that of our community? Those are the kind of the two things that I kind of have in the balance here. Also in the balance is what is beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, but, you know, what are you able to do in terms of freedom with your property? You know, there has to be that type of a balance because, again, we don't live in an HOA community. I just don't want this to be an undue burden for residents. I don't want it to change kind of the makeup of what we have on our day-to-day. And I made the joke, if it fits, it ships. You know, that's obviously within reason. I think that by having a trailer, you know, growing up, one of my favorite things to do here is to wash the boat in front of the house, because on the side of the house, we weren't at the time fortunate to have a concrete pad. So nobody wants to wash their boat with muck and getting in and out of the boat. And, you know, now it's a dirty boat because you had to get off and wash something else or you forgot the sponge. So, you know, parking in front of your house, or you're going to use it Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that boat should probably be out, you know, back in its parking space on Monday. So, you know, 72 hours I feel like is reasonable. 36 hours, 72 hours feels right. It's just my opinion. You know, there was talk about commercial vehicles and deliveries to the home, and that's really hard to enforce. You know, you got that's a different topic. But also this idea of the percentage of length of, you know, these trailers versus the property. So, you know, if you look at a standard lot size, 100 by 100 or something.
I thought he was talking about the number of trailers compared to the size of the land.
Correct, but I'm just extrapolating here and just thinking out loud. You know, does that mean that we take the length of the property line and somehow have some sort of a formula? I think that that really gets into the weeds. I think that we're starting right back at the same starting point that we are with this code, and the feedback that we've gotten from residents, from code enforcement, is it's hard to enforce. How are we going to sit there with a ruler, and, you know, that's tough. So I think we start with the current code and kind of either add or subtract from it, and give people some choice. It's hard to have a subjective code to say, hey, if it looks nice, it would be nice if the code was easy enough to say, well, if it looks nice, well, who does it look nice to? So those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Mayor.
You know what? Mr. Hernandez I think just hit the nail on the head. You know, make the code easy to understand. If you make the code easy to understand, you make the code enforceable. You know, it's kind of like, duh. And that resonated with me. I'm going, well, it needs to be, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand the damn code. You know, we're having non-lawyers enforce the code. So everybody should, it should be as easy as talking to a fifth grader as to what that code says and how it should be complied with. The people have been calling me up. I mean, I stop at a stop sign and, you know, hey, come over here. We're talking about you. And I'm going, well, if you're talking about me, you're giving somebody else a rest. But, you know, they said, just leave everything alone. Well, okay, leave it alone. Easier said than done. One thing that I heard consistently throughout last couple months, use that front of your house as that line. Put everything behind the front of the house, front of the house line, and we're good to go. Okay, you got me there. I'm in for that. What about a fence? Does it need to be opaque? If you want to put a fence up, fine. But I'd rather have it behind the front of the house than an opaque fence. I even started looking at the cost of taking my fence and weaving, you know, some material in there to make it opaque. So that's an issue that we have to further discuss. A non-starter for me is the size of the lot and a percentage and a formula. Stop that. I'm not, no, I'm not going to do that. I just don't think that satisfies the intent of the code. The intent of the code is to maintain the curb appeal, and that's the key here, and to be cognizant and of the needs and wants of our neighbors. I think that's the key there. This 3 cargo trailer thing, don't know how they got started, but it seems to me like if you look at what we have now, all we need to do is just say no more than 1 enclosed cargo trailer. With regard to the boat and watercraft trailer, I agree with you, whoever he's gone now. I don't know whether the length issue, maybe 32 years ago when this was all started in 1990, okay, but maybe it's not applicable now. So I need to have a conversation about vetting the issue of getting rid of the lengths and the aggregate length. And then this 1 ton trailer issue, 1 ton Yeah, well, I went and I said, what's the difference? And it said in particular here that to give you an idea, a F-350 is a 1-ton trailer, is a 1-ton vehicle, less than that. So I think the people that said it's an F-250, in violation, I think the answer is no. It even goes up to a Dodge Ram 2500 or a 3500. So maybe we have a picture. That's easy for me to understand. But, I really have, in talking to my neighbors, gosh, I was excited that, Mike called me up and said, I got 172 violations. I said, well, Mike, I think it's 172 alleged violations. And no, he was adamant it was 175. And I said, okay, we'll see. I think that's good. Star, I think he did a great job. I think the people that went out there and knocked on doors, I think that that's great. But the information that we have to put out there is accurate information. And we can only make an informed decision if we have the right information. And once that information starts getting twisted and blurred, we're not going to make good decisions. And people are going to get upset about the fact that our decisions are wrong. So I want to make a decision based upon accurate information. And I want to make my decision based upon the people that we up here promised to represent. I've been up here a while and I listened to y'all. I didn't just ignore you and tell you, oh, leave me alone. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And that didn't get me up here as long as I have been. I want to listen to you. I'm your voice. We just have to be respectful of each other and respectful of the process. That's the key. And then we'll get through this. We'll get through it. But to zero in on it, yeah, I don't think we're ready to put something on the agenda next week and say, okay, all those in favor say aye. I think we need to vet it a little bit more. And now we have, you weren't in here, Dan, when I introduced Mr. Lobello to those that were here. Those of you who weren't here when I introduced Mr. Lobello, if you just turn around and say, hi, that's your new town administrator. That's the new sheriff in town. So I want to listen to him a little bit too. He comes from Juneau Beach. It's I think the population is very similar. And I want your 2 cents worth. Maybe you know something. There's an old Lebanese saying, a new broom sweeps clean, but an old broom knows where the dirt is. So I want
Our new broom gets with the old broom.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is I like to hear from you and some suggestions from you. And maybe we look out, see what Atlantis is doing and Green Acres and South Palm. But, I want as much information as I can to make an informed decision. And then once we all make an informed decision with accurate information, our neighbors are going to appreciate that a little bit more. So
Hey,
thank you very
Bob,
much, Mr. Mayor.
can you get me a book of Lebanese sayings? Because
You need to be taking notes.
they're very good.
It's a heavy book.
They're very good.
All right, y'all. I really want to thank all the residents who spoke today, who came today, who reached out to me, and all the councilmen ahead of the meeting. We really appreciate it. I thought this was incredibly helpful and useful. It's certainly the start of what's going to be a little bit of a process. It's not going to be a quick fix here, but you know what? I'd rather do it right. And today was a really great first step in that direction. So keep posted. I don't know what we're going to do next as far as another workshop, et cetera, on that end, but it's very likely from my perspective that'll happen, or there'll be some type of a dedicated meeting once we figure out the town figures out and recommends to us based on our input from today, once we had a chance to digest what we're going to do going forward. So I'm ready to call it a night. Take a motion.
So moved.
All in favor? All right, motion carries.
Thank
Y'all
you,
have a really
everybody.
safe
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.